In 1992, a new challenger entered the fighting game arena and would quickly go on to become one of the most successful and controversial video game franchises of all time. Mortal Kombat pushed the boundaries and technical capabilities of the video game world, forever changing gaming as we know it. Welcome, combatants, to another episode of Arcade Economy. In my last episode, we tackled Sega's classic hack-and-slash Golden Axe. Today, we're going to be taking a look at one of my favorite game franchises of all time, if you could not tell. It is Mortal Kombat, and we're going to be determining just how much it cost to beat this game when it released in 1992, and we'll figure out just how predatory this game was when it came to eating your quarters. Now, usually in these videos, I like to take a look at the development of the games leading up to their release, and then kind of talk about how the franchise expanded, some of the spin-offs and ports that it had, and just take a look at the overall, gaming history of the game. If that's not something you're into and you just want to find out how much money I spent, then please feel free to use the chapters in the timeline below to get to where you need to go. But if you're a fan of video game history, then I invite you to stick around for a bit. With that, let's answer the question, did Mortal Kombat fight fair? We're gonna find out. Let's travel back in time all the way to 1991. Midway Games was on top of the world, creating some of the most notorious arcade games of the time. Midway was looking to create a fighting game to capitalize on the genre's recent boost in popularity, thanks to releases like Street Fighter II and Fatal Fury. Midway tasked developers Ed Boon and John Tobias with creating the game. Boon acting as the game's programmer, while Tobias would handle art and design. The team decided to use a digitation process involving real actors instead of pixel art.
Right, these fellas here play characters in the game.
We take their images and we put them on film here, and then we transfer that to video images, and it turns out to end up what's on the game over there.
The process had already been used by a few other games, like Narc and Terminator 2. Mortal Kombat actually wasn't even the first fighting game to do this. That honor goes to Atari's Pit Fighter. However, the success that followed Mortal Kombat would cause Midway to invest in the technology for a lot of their future games. Initially, martial arts actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was set to star as the game's main protagonist, but decided to turn the role down to act in the Street Fighter movie. And thank God he did, because this game probably would have been a very different game. Being big fans of martial arts, fantasy, and science fiction movies, Boon and Tobias would use these as inspiration for creating their characters' story and design. The creators have stated that the ultra-violence that's associated with Mortal Kombat was never initially intended, but throughout production gradually increased. Finishing moves called Fatalities eventually entered the game, and like the creation of their characters, were mostly taken from pop culture.
Kano wins. Fatality.
Another heavy influence on the game's story, setting, and overall vibe can be attributed to the 1973 Bruce Lee movie, Enter the Dragon. It's pretty clear as day that the movie's island tournament setting, character archetypes, and visual and thematic tone had a direct impact on the creation of the game. Boon and Tobias took all of these elements, threw them into a pot, and in August 1992, Mortal Kombat was unleashed into arcades everywhere. It immediately challenged Street Fighter II for the top fighting game title, and would kick off a rivalry that still exists to this day. With Mortal Kombat's release, all bets were off when it came to violence in video games. Ultra-violence was a hit, and the video game industry was looking to cash in on it. As a result, more violence started appearing in games, and a number of Mortal Kombat copycats were released. Looking at you, time killers. And while Mortal Kombat caught the attention of gamers around the world, it also caught the attention of US Congress. In late 1993, the US Senate began a series of hearings centered around violent video games, with Mortal Kombat being front and center. The result of the hearings was the creation of the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or more commonly known as the ESRB, which would assign age-appropriate ratings to video games based upon their content. Honestly, the controversy probably contributed towards the franchise's growing success. That whole thing of, when you're not allowed to play it or you're not supposed to play it as a kid, you just want to play it more. Thanks to our good friends at Acclaim, Mortal Kombat released for home consoles, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and handhelds Game Boy and Game Gear on September 13th, 1993, a day dubbed as Mortal Monday. And for some of you older folks, you might remember the commercial. The Super Nintendo version was heavily censored, toning down or completely replacing some of the gory fatalities, and changing the color of the blood to make it look more like sweat. You could unlock the blood and gore in the Sega Genesis version by using the blood code. ABACAB, ABA-CABB. That's the blood code. It will live with me forever. With the game being such a huge hit and the center of controversy, Midway quickly put Boone and Tobias to work on a sequel. Mortal Kombat 2 would nearly double the characters, double the fatalities, and up the production value. It continued the success of the first game when it launched in 1993. 1995 saw the Midway team up the speed of the franchise as it became more of a combo fighter with Mortal Kombat 3 and its updated version, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, 6 months later. In 1997, we saw the first spin-off game with Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero for the PlayStation and Nintendo 64, which wasn't very well received. I still love you though, Mythologies. Then, in 1998, Midway released its last Mortal Kombat arcade game with Mortal Kombat 4. It was the team's first venture into 3D graphics rather than digitized assets, and while it was met with pretty good reception, the game didn't experience the same highs as it did with games prior. It also didn't help that around this time, arcades were starting to see a huge decline thanks to the home console market. A year after Mortal Kombat 4's release, John Tobias would leave Midway to go on and form his own studio. Mortal Kombat would continue to move forward into its 3D era with a number of games and spin-offs before being rebooted, and then being rebooted again, and then being rebooted again. And I didn't even touch upon Mortal Kombat's impact on pop culture. Feature films, TV shows, comics, collaborations, a card game. You name it, chances are Mortal Kombat has done it. Today, Mortal Kombat is one of the largest and most successful gaming franchises in the industry. Mortal Kombat's story started off as something that was really simple and then evolved into this deep lore right around the end of the arcade era. Now, most people associate Mortal Kombat with Outworld needing to win 10 straight Mortal Kombat tournaments in order to invade Earthrealm. And while this story beat is still canon, it wasn't brought up until Mortal Kombat 2's mail-in comic, which had a quick mention of that. And even then, it wasn't brought up in-game until Mortal Kombat Trilogy in 1996. For the sake of this video, I'm going to stick to just the main storyline for this game when it released. But if Mortal Kombat lore and story is something that you are interested in, then allow me to shamelessly plug my Mortal Kombat lore channel, MK Temple. There you can view my recap of the complete history of the series. But for now, here's the base storyline for the original game. In the arcade game's Attract mode, a brief story slide and character bios are shown to give players an overview of the game's lore. The arcade also featured an advertisement for a collector's edition mail-in comic that expanded upon the game's storyline. The comic was written and drawn by series co-creator John Tobias. Mortal Kombat's story goes as follows. 500 years ago, a Shokan warrior from the realm of Outworld known as Goro defeated the Great Kung Lao in the Mortal Kombat tournament, and has remained the undefeated grand champion ever since. In that time, the tournament had fallen into the hands of the evil sorcerer known as Tsung. Goro must remain undefeated in order for Tsung to tip the balance into chaos to help Outworld conquer the Earthrealm. Several challengers enter the tournament to take on Goro and prevent Outworld from gaining the upper hand. Among the challengers are Liu Kang, a warrior from the White Lotus Society representing the Shaolin monks at the tournament, Johnny Cage, a martial arts actor entering the tournament to prove his moves are the real deal, Kano, a member of the Black Dragon clan entering the tournament to raid Shang Tsung's Island of Riches, Sonya Blade, a special forces lieutenant in pursuit of Kano, Raiden, the thunder god and protector of Earthrealm, Sub-Zero, a Lin Kuei warrior ordered to assassinate Shang Tsung, and Scorpion, a ninja warrior hell-bent on enacting revenge on Sub-Zero and his clan. Now, most fighting games around this time were seen as social games. Players would line up in the arcade to square off against each other. However, if you did wind up playing solo, the single-player ladder was no easy feat. Mortal Kombat is a fighting game that uses an 8-directional joystick and 5 buttons: high punch, low punch, high kick, low kick, and block. The inclusion of a dedicated block button is something that wasn't seen much in fighting games at the time, with other games simply using back or duck to block attacks. Characters share a similar set of moves using specific button and directional combinations. Each character can perform an uppercut, sweep, roundhouse kick, throw, heavy close attack, and a knee strike. Each character also has a unique set of special moves that can be performed with certain movements and button combinations. Mortal Kombat also introduced a new way to perform special moves. While fighters like Street Fighter use fractional circles combined with a button press to perform special moves, Mortal Kombat implemented a lot of its special moves by tapping certain directions followed by a button press. For example, tapping back low punch initiates Scorpion's spear attack.
Get over here! Excellent. Scorpion wins.
The game also introduced the concept of juggling combos, meaning that you could attack defenseless opponents while they're in air. This popular concept made its way to all future installments and is still used to this day. The game's biggest standout from other fighters and the main topic of controversy was the inclusion of the aforementioned fatalities. At the end of each match, the victor is prompted to finish him to perform a deadly attack on their opponent.
Sonya wins. Fatality.
There is also a secret hidden stage fatality on the pit stage that allows players to knock opponents into the spikes below. There are also some subtle inclusions in the game that I find make this game more immersive than other fighters at the time. The way that the entire screen shakes when a big move is performed, or the audio cues for when you hit an uppercut, just really brought me into the game the way that other fighters didn't. There are a total of 7 different backgrounds, with one of them being a secret background where you fight against the game's hidden character, Reptile. Mortal Kombat has always prided itself on secrets and rumors. The creators included hints for how to find Reptile that would randomly play between matches. If you were able to defeat the CPU with 2 flawless victories while on the pit stage with silhouettes crossing the moon, and perform a fatality, all without pushing block, you would be granted a fight with Reptile. A rumored glitch character known as Ermac, the Red Ninja, was also thought to be in the game, something that Boone and Tobias would capitalize on later in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 when they introduced him as a proper character.
Ermac wins.
After selecting your character, players would have to complete a 12-match ladder in order to beat the game. The difficulty increases slightly with each match. The first 7 matches are one-on-one matches, with the 7th being a mirror match against the character the player has chosen. Matches 8, 9, and 10 are 2-on-1 endurance matches, and the final 2 matches are against the bosses, Goro and Tsung. As you climb the ladder, a Test Your Might minigame will appear between several fights, prompting players to button mash to break objects like wood, steel, or diamond. Doing so will add bonus points to the player's overall score. The game really ups its difficulty upon reaching the boss characters. The game's AI was a relatively basic system. It primarily focused on executing moves, blocking when necessary, and sometimes attempting to punish the opponent's mistakes. The AI does a pretty good job of recognizing patterns and blocks moves consistently after they've worked a few times. So you'll have to switch up your strategy. And although the AI's complexity was limited by the technology available at the time, it's been called out for reading player inputs and reacting in a time frame that would be almost impossible for a human to perform. I noticed this a few times while playing, but I especially noticed it when playing against the boss characters Goro and Tsung. Goro would regularly counter my jump attacks, or would block and then immediately follow up with a throw, giving me no time to react. Also, after landing several special move attacks, I would be punished immediately from a special move by my opponent, something that seems impossible for a human player to do. Tsung has the ability to transform into any character in the game. There were several times I've noticed a quick transform and counter to my special moves that I was trying to perform. Now this is a clear indication of input reading, and if you up the game's difficulty, only gets worse. The key to defeating the game's AI is not about finding a single weakness, but rather about learning its patterns, exploiting its predictable behavior, and understanding how to punish its mistakes, even though the AI is programmed with some major advantages. When you do finally beat the game, you are treated to a couple of storyline slides showcasing your character's epilogue after they win the Mortal Kombat tournament. Now it's time to answer the question, how much did I spend beating Mortal Kombat? As always, I played this game on an emulator and set up a counter to increase every time I hit the insert coin button. I play these games on their default settings, so for Mortal Kombat that means it was 50 cents per play at medium difficulty. When it was all said and done, it cost me $13 to beat Mortal Kombat. Now adjusted for inflation, $13 back in 1992 would feel like spending $29.60 today. It took me just about 49 minutes to beat the game, which factors into about 26 cents per minute. When I got to Goro, the first boss, I was at $5.50. I spent a whole $4 on Goro and a whole $3.50 on Tsung, bringing my boss total to $7.50. I also want to note that I played this game 2 more times after beating it, and on my second try, I also beat it for $13, and on my last try, I beat it for $11, so I got a little bit better. Now, let's bust out my predatory game scale to determine just how predatory this game was when it released in 1992. Okay, listen. We've only done one other fighting game on this show so far, and that was WrestleMania, the arcade game. At the end of that video, I said that I may have ranked it too high, I may have ranked it too low. We'll see once we get into other fighting games. And thinking back on that now, I definitely ranked it too high, giving it a 4. So I'd like to give WrestleMania, the arcade game, a better score and bring that down to somewhere around a 3 or a 2. But before I do that, there's been some discussion about the predatory game scale and having it be a 1 to 5 scale or be a 1 to 10 scale. And I've given it much thought, and I do think it makes sense to make it more of a 1 to 10 scale. So that's what I'm going to do today, introducing the new predatory game scale of 1 to 10, 1 being least predatory and 10 being extremely predatory. We're going to slot in WrestleMania, the arcade game, right around a 4. So I guess it's still a 4. It's just now a 4 out of 10 rather than a 4 out of 5. So where does that put Mortal Kombat? Well, Mortal Kombat is a predatory game. It reads players' inputs and automatically responds and reacts to that quicker than a human player could, which is extremely cheap. But it's also not the only arcade game that does that. And I know of a few that I can think that do it a little bit worse. Still, this game needs to be high. I've played this game for probably thousands of hours throughout my entire life, so I'm very familiar with this game. Someone who's not familiar, probably going to take them a lot longer to beat this. So with all that thought, but knowing that there are games that are a little bit worse than this, I feel comfortable putting Mortal Kombat at a 9 out of 10 on my predatory game scale.
Fatality.
Next time on Arcade Economy, we'll be taking a look at 1987's Contra, a game that raised the bar and set the stage for the run-and-gun subgenre. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a great deal to me if you could give it a big thumbs up. Join me in my Discord to get exclusive access to polls for which videos I will be featuring next. I will include a link in the description for that. As always, thank you for your support, and hopefully you'll see me on my next video.